Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. And also, welcome back to Solo RPG Friday. Today, we will be taking a look at Wandering Souls. Wandering Souls is a game created by Cody Barr with art by friend of the channel, Perplexing Ruins. This is kind of a preview copy, so I believe that Wandering Souls recently it failed to meet its funding goal on Kickstarter, but Cody has released it on his itch channel, itch.io, and it is released by created by Sleepy Sasquatch Games. And that name might be familiar to some people because that is also the creator of Glide, a solo and cooperative sci-fi RPG adventure, which I do need to get a look at on the channel at some time. But Wandering Souls is a solo RPG. It focuses on journaling, but it also has some pretty strong gameplay mechanisms. So it's not purely a game of writing fiction. Let's take a little look at this. So this is a preview copy. You can download this now. I downloaded this and made my own little zine here. So it hasn't been edited. Some of the rules are still being finalized, but I think there is a really good foundation here, and I'm enjoying the game quite a bit. So this says that Wandering Souls is a solo journaling game of shadows, swords, and exploring a world, fighting back against the evils surrounding it. You play as a wanderer who has taken to traveling the world, helping those in need and braving the darkness. As you progress through your story, you will discover what role you play in the world and create a legacy. If you are opposed to journaling your adventures, you can instead play without recording your travels. This game, I think, does benefit from some journaling. Now, when I journal, I don't write a lot. I know some people write pages and pages and pages. I try to keep it very concise down to a couple of sentences just to help me remember my adventure and help me flesh out the things that I have done on my adventure. So to play the game, all you need are the core rules. You need a character sheet. You need a couple six-sided dice and a standard deck of cards with the jokers or the wilds mixed in. You will also be using this legacy sheet here because this is a pretty cool thing, something that I've actually been working on in my own game that I keep running into stumbling blocks creating, but this is something that I want in more games like this, is a rogue legacy element where as your characters die, or in the case of this game, as they retire, they add things to the world that subsequent characters can use and can benefit from, or possibly be harmed by if one of your legacy characters ends up being cursed. So this is a really cool idea, a neat little kind of gimmick mechanism that Wandering Souls uses. So in Wandering Souls, you are a wanderer, an adventurer from any walk of life, born during exceptional times. You have experienced a change in your life that has pushed you outward. You are brave and bold. You are a brave and bold soul seeking adventure. Putting yourself in peril is something you willingly choose to do with your own goals in mind. And you are fighting against the shadows, and we are in a shrouded realm, which is a huge realm that is being kind of attacked from the outside by these shadow beings. The game is very simple. You will mostly the mechanism will revolve around rolling 2d6, adding a number, and trying to hit or beat a target number. While you are progressing your story, you will be keeping track of two things: tracks and lore. Tracking is if you are following a being, a thing, a person, or a creature, you want to gain a certain number of track points to solve that quest. Or if you are trying to track down a thing, a MacGuffin, or a place, you're looking for points of lore. And depending on the quest that you are going on, you will have a certain number of tracks and a certain number of lore points that you are looking for in order to beat that quest. Most characters will go through about 5 or 6 different complete stories before they retire and before they become part of your game's legacy. And that tells you here about how you're going to be progressing the story. And then as far as character creation goes, we have a few stats. We have hit points, wounds. As your hit points drop to 0, you will then start taking wounds. and each character type will have a certain number of maximum wounds. My character now has a 5 max wounds. I am playing a character named Joandar Boreali. I am a human delver, and I have trouble communicating. I am armed with a hatchet. I have a shield, a travel garb, and a crown of an old king as armor. I also have 1 rations. I have 2 fate points. Fate points allow you to re-roll. I have 0 wounds so far. I have 1 shadow, so you have a max number of shadow points. And as your character experiences bad things, they will take more shadow points. If they ever reach their maximum amount of shadow, then they have to retire. I have 6 hit points. I have a 2 spirit and a 3 defense. I have a 0 reputation right now because this is a pretty new character. For my basic combat stats are a fight, magic, and reflexes. I have a fight of 4, a magic of 1, and reflexes of 1. Fight is for melee combat. Magic is for magic. You have to have at least a 2 in your magic stat to cast spells. And reflexes is for ranged combat. The one thing I'm not quite clear on, and I think some of the rules could be a little more clear in how you derive your stats, what the difference is between max and current. So that is a little unclear, but I think Cody is still kind of working on the rules and cleaning up the rule book. So I have a feeling that once this is finalized, that this is going to be a pretty special game because I'm having a lot of fun with it. So characters will have a max spirit of 5, a max wounds of 4, and a max shadow of 3. And there are things that can change those maxes. When you create a character, you're going to create a background, or you'll pick a background, I should say, from a variety of different backgrounds. And each background will give you a certain number of starting stats and will also give you some starting items. So I chose a Delver, which I can start with 6 HP, a 2 in my fight, a 1 in my reflexes, a 1 in my magic, and 2 fate. And then my starting items were a hatchet, a shield, and travel garb. And then you'll roll up a weakness, and a weakness will just give you something to work on when you're role playing. So my weakness was trouble communicating with others. So that's just something you want to keep in mind as you are dealing with the various events and things that you come across. And then finally, you will customize your character. You can customize your character by picking a species: human, dwarf, elf, halfling, or an ancient one. And then those will also give you bonuses to your various stats. You can also create a companion. So as you start each quest, you will roll a d6, and then you will pick what, or you will compare that to the companion chart. So right now I have a human mercenary as my companion. And then it gets into explaining what the cards do. And there are different things that as you draw cards, each of the cards will represent certain things such as events, locations, beings. These are people or creatures. They can be good or bad. Things are weapons, treasure, loot, and also shadows. So the jokers or the wilds will represent your shadows, and that's when you start gaining shadow points. So right now I am on a quest. My main quest that I drew was a Jack, and so the Jack is a wizard has asked that you provide a large enough distraction as they move beings of importance out of the region. So I've kind of complicated that or customized that a bit, where I need to help protect this wizard who is performing some kind of exorcism. So a wizard named Bakor has hired me to create a distraction as they attempt to free a conjured entity from a magical imprisonment. That's kind of my basic quest. Once you find out your basic quest, you will then roll a d6 to determine how many lore points or how many track points you need to get in order to complete that quest. And once you get enough of those track or lore points, you will then roll up on your epilogue table to see what how you gain reputation for completing that quest. And then you will also draw a card to see what kind of reward you get for completing that quest. And then you will move on in a few other stories, a few other quests until your character takes enough spirit points or enough wounds in which at which point they will have to retire. So the first thing you do, let's take a look at my quest so far. So I was watching over Bakor as he was starting his exorcism, and I was ambushed by wolf riders. And the location I was at the bones of a giant beast. So I am saying that there's this spirit that possessed the bones of this giant beast. The wolf riders were riding up on the bones in order to steal the bones for their steeds. And they ambushed me, and I was able to fight them off. After I fought them off, I was approached by a rhyming poet named Renabo, the bard, and Renabo wanted to write an epic about the quest. So he's kind of following me around right now as my bard. And the wizard Bakor was able to able to exorcise the spirit from the bones of the beast, but that caused an earthquake, a supernatural earthquake. And as Bakar was releasing the spirit, the earth started to tremble and some of those giant bones started to fall. So I needed to make a dodge test. And so I was able to dodge away from the bones without taking any kind of damage. And after the earthquake was done, it revealed, buried deep beneath the earth, it revealed a pilgrim's totem. And the pilgrim's totem began to glow, projecting a light, a beacon to the south. And we figured that's the beacon, that's the path that we needed to follow in order to take this exorcised spirit back to its rightful burial ground. Then I had a shadow event, and the released spirit passed through me and I was able to glimpse into the tragic events of their wretched existence. I found myself spirited away into a burning forest. It was kind of a flashback that this spirit, I think, had died in a fire. And I found myself in that burning forest. Fire was raining down from above. I had to dodge some falling fiery branches. I was able to finally break free of that bewitchment. And we continued to follow the beacon, and we stopped at an inn for rest. And at the end, I met a traveling fellowship, and they gave me the crown of an old king to help me on my quest. And so that's where I'm at now. So at the beginning of each kind of turn, you're going to draw a couple of cards to set an event and a scene for that part of the quest. So let's see. We will draw a 4 of diamonds. So I am using the deck of cards from the Colossal, the solo RPG deck of cards here. So the first card will be your event, so a 4 of diamonds. And then the second card will be the location where you end up for that segment of the quest, so a 9 of hearts. So the first thing we want to do is we'll look up the 4 of diamonds on our event chart here. So diamonds, a 4 of diamonds. Okay, so we come across a foul stench. So we have left so a 4 of diamonds, a foul stench. So we continue our trek. We leave the inn, continue south into I think we're going into a kind of a swampy region with a foul stench. And the stench is so bad that we do have to overcome it. And so when you have your event, you roll up to see what the difficulty score. So this is kind of like a resolve. You know, this stench is so bad that it's causing us physical ailment. So let's see how bad it is. A 2. Okay, so the stench is really bad. That has a difficulty score of 10. And with events, what you want to do is you want to roll your spirit. So I have a spirit of 2. Now, spirit is an interesting stat because when you make your challenge roll, so I need to get a DS score of 10, so I can add, so I would need to roll an 8 and add a 2 to get a 10 or higher. You can also spend spirit in order to add 1 point to any dice. And you can also, if you fail your test, you can spend a spirit to take that test again at a lowered difficulty score. So your spirit is a currency as well as a stat. I really do like that. But again, I'm a little unclear as to what my starting spirit actually is. I don't know if it's my max or if it's just the spirit given to me by my human, by being a human. So if Cody, if you watch this, if you could kind of clear up the max versus starting spirit and hit points, I guess that would be great. But let's see if we can bypass this foul stench without getting too sick and having it kind of take over our body here. All right, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so I plug my nose. I'm able to move through this swampy area. The foul stench doesn't make me too sick. If you were to fail that, you would also take damage depending on the challenge. If it's a hard challenge, you'll take 3 hit points, 2 hit points, and 1 hit point worth of damage, or something like that. All right, so we made it through, and now we are kind of in this swamp. And now let's see what kind of location we have stumbled across here. Locations table, we are at a 9 of hearts, and we find a sheltered cove. Okay, so within this foul-smelling swamp, then the foul-smelling swamp, we find a sheltered cove. Take refuge at the cove. Okay, so we take refuge in this sheltered cove, trying to get away from the smell. And now that we've found that location, we need to see what we find in this location. That is another roll of a d6. A 3. We find 1 being and 1 thing. Okay, so something else is also taking shelter in this cove, and they have a thing with them. So when you find a being, the first thing you want to do is you need to roll to see if it's good or evil. Okay, so we found an evil being, and that will probably mean combat. So we will draw our being, an ace of diamonds, and then the thing that they have is a 3 of spades. So let's go to our evil being. We have a red suit, so that is an ace. We come across a shadow rider. So out of the shadows of this cove comes this darkened shadow rider. And what does the shadow rider have in its possession? A 3 of spades. The shadow rider has some provisions. I'm going to say that these provisions were in the back of the cove. And this shadow rider is the spirit of a traveler who died because of that foul stench. It made him so sick, it poisoned him, and he has been haunting this cove. And so now we have to dispatch of the shadow rider, and if we do, we can take those provisions, and those provisions will allow us to heal. So the shadow rider has a DES of 14. That's pretty hard. That's going to be a hard fight here. He has 8 HP and a morale of 14. So if an enemy ever gets down to their morale, half of their morale, then there's a chance that they will flee, and we will have won that combat. So combat is pretty easy. Once combat starts, as long as you aren't ambushed, you will roll to see the reaction of the enemy to kind of determine the start of the combat here. 4, we meet the enemy head on. Okay, so I don't surprise the enemy doesn't surprise me. I pull out my hatchet, and we need to fight this shadow being now. And so my fight is 4. The shadow being has a difficulty score of 14, so I need to hit a 10 or higher to hit. So this is going to be pretty, I think, pretty challenging here. We can always escape, but let's see if I can at least do some damage. Okay, a 9. No, that would be a 13. So the difference is 1, depending. So I got a 13. The difference from 14 to 13 is 1. But my defense protects me from damage, so I'm good. So I have pretty good defense right now, so your defense will protect you from that many points of damage. So I am at a 3. So, all right, well, let's attack again. Let's attack one more time. Come on, I need to get that 10. 8, no. Okay, so 8 plus 4 is 12. 14 minus 12 is 2. But I blocked 3 points of damage, so I'm good. I don't think I'm going to win this particular battle. It's pretty tough, so I think I will escape. The player can attempt to flee combat during their turn by rolling 2d6 and adding their spirit total. On a result higher than the DS of the enemy, the flee is successful. However, if lower, take damage equal to the different results versus the DS of the enemy. And so I think you can still escape. That's another rule that's a little bit unclear. I think you can escape, but you will take damage. So we can try to escape and probably take a lot of damage because my spirit is only 2. And they have a DS of 14. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I'm going to take 4 points of damage. So that would drop me down to 2 hit points. So we flee the cove, we flee the Shadow Rider. I'm unable to grab those provisions because they're in the back of the cove where the Shadow Rider was protecting them. And I run out into the swamp and try to escape. I do have 1 set of rations now, which I think I will go ahead and eat, and that will give me 2 hit points. So now I'm back up to 4 hit points. And you know what we forgot to do is I forgot to add my mercenary. Gives me a plus, actually that's a +2 fight. So that could have actually helped me quite a bit. I often forget to add the bonuses from my mercenary that's with me. All right, so the bard is maybe writing some verses about how I bravely ran away, of course. Can't pass up that joke, right? So that part of the quest is over. We received no lore. We received no tracks or anything, so I just took some damage. So that was not a very beneficial leg of my quest in trying to help this wizard escort this exorcised spirit back to its rightful burial ground. But yeah, that's kind of how you play. There are some other things which we can go into real quick. You do have some magic here, and magic, again, you have to have a magic score of 2 or higher in order to cast these spells. So I am unable to use any of the magic, but the magic seems pretty cool. And you have a whole bunch of different things. Some things you use and you have to roll to see how well they are able to be used. Sometimes you might use a thing and nothing happens. Sometimes you'll use something and it's half as effective, or it's fully as effective. It works as intended. There is quite a bit of role playing. You do have to bring in some player effort to this game to come up with things, to flesh out the narrative, to flesh out the world, because it gives you just enough. There is a good set of bones built with Wandering Souls, and then we can just add the flesh to it and sculpt it and make it the kind of game that we want to play. When you take all of your hit points, you will have wounds. You will roll up on your wound chart here and then determine what happens. And then if you succumb to your wounds, then there is a chart here that you will need to roll on as your character retires. And then here we have a way to retire our characters. If we are cursed, if we retire because we are consumed by the shadow, then we are cursed. But if we are able to retire on our own, then we can leave a positive legacy for future adventurers in this world. There's all of our events tables, our location tables. We have our evil beings, our good beings, and all of the things that we can find. So yeah, that is a quick and dirty look at Wandering Souls. A interesting little game. I have enjoyed my time with it so far. I like games that use deck of cards in like kind of these oracle ways. And I think a deck of cards is just such a useful thing to use in especially these little indie games, because everybody has a deck of cards that they can use. I like the journaling aspect of this game, but I also like that it is backed up by some solid actual gameplay mechanisms. It's still a little rough around the edges, but this is a preview copy. You can get it on itch.io. I do recommend playing it and then letting Cody know in the comments, things that you might want to see fixed, things that you might want to see added or changed. Because I have pointed out one thing to him, the rules for the wounds and being injured were missing in the version that was up yesterday, but it has already been updated. And he is continuing to work on it, and I'm hoping that it turns out even better than it already is. So, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at Wandering Souls, a solo adventure. We will talk to you later. Bye-bye.